The Carvos drifted like a corpse among the stars. Once, long ago, it had been the pride of an empire, an unstoppable warship feared across dozens of systems. Its silhouette had struck terror into worlds, and its name had been whispered like a curse. But that was centuries ago. Now it was only a shadow, a hollow carcass of metal and broken pride. Every traveler who passed the neutral system knew it. Merchants would point at it from their ships, telling their children stories about the dead monster. Mercenaries used it as a joke in their taverns, claiming even a drunk shuttle pilot could take it down. Aliens of every kind laughed at it, calling it the galaxy's biggest piece of junk. To them, the Carvos was not a legend, it was a mockery, and so it floated in silence, dead, forgotten, until the day a small, patched-up freighter arrived. The freighter was ugly, dented, and human. It carried no great weapons, no proud markings of empire, only rust and stubbornness. Out of it stepped Marcus Hale. He was not a soldier or a prince, not an admiral or a commander. He was only a mechanic, a salvager, a man whose hands had fixed everything from broken satellites to battered shuttlecraft. His reputation was not of power, but of persistence. People said Marcus Hale could take a pile of metal no one wanted and turn it into something that flew. The aliens at the nearby trade outpost laughed when they heard why he had come. "You?" hissed a Luthari merchant, her long fingers curling with amusement. "You're here for the Carvos? That ship is cursed. Whole fleets tried to restore it. Engineers of the Zorthan Collective broke their tools on it. Even the Kra Hive with their swarm of repair drones failed to wake it. And you, one little human with a toolbox, you think you can do better?" Marcus only smiled, a small, crooked grin that revealed nothing. "I'll see for myself." They laughed harder. To them it was comedy. To Marcus, it was a challenge. The mechanic crossed the silent corridors of the derelict for the first time. His boots echoed against the cold metal floors. Rust flaked under his gloves as he touched the walls. The ship was dark, lifeless, a skeleton of its former glory. Yet Marcus did not feel fear. He felt wonder. Where others saw ruin, he saw possibility. The power conduits were shattered, but not beyond hope. The main reactor was fused, but still intact. Even the ancient circuits, though alien in design, seemed to whisper to him, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. He set down his pack and got to work. Days turned into weeks. He patched hull breaches, rewired conduits, cleaned out centuries of dust and decay. He worked with old human tools, sometimes crude, sometimes improvised. When he lacked parts, he built them from scraps. Where the alien engineers had demanded perfection, Marcus used ingenuity, and little by little the ship responded. Aliens gathered to watch. At first it was for amusement. From the safety of their stations and freighters, they pointed their scanners and cameras at the human who worked like an ant in a graveyard. "Look at him," one laughed, "trying to mend a corpse." "Humans are strange," another said. "They do not know when to give up." He is not repairing, he is playing. But the longer Marcus worked, the quieter the laughter grew. He was not failing. He was progressing. He reactivated secondary lights in one corridor. He brought online a handful of dormant consoles. Once a door long fused by time slid open at his touch. None of it should have been possible, and yet Marcus kept doing it. "What if," whispered one alien observer, but the others silenced him. No, it was impossible. 3 months into his work, Marcus stood before the great heart of the ship, the main reactor chamber. The chamber was vast, circular, filled with the bones of technology so old and alien that even the greatest engineers of the galaxy had failed to comprehend it. For centuries it had been called beyond repair. Marcus studied it for hours. He touched the conduits, traced the burned circuits with his eyes, and thought not as a scientist but as a mechanic. Machines, he believed, were alive in their own way. They wanted to work. They wanted to function. You just had to listen to them. He spent days pulling apart melted panels. He risked his life crawling into the tight, radiation-soaked tunnels. His hands blistered, his skin burned, but he continued. He welded, patched, rewired, sometimes using alien parts, sometimes human ones. It was ugly, uneven, and far from perfect. And then, one night in the silence of the dead ship, he pressed a button. The reactor hummed. First a spark, then a glow. The chamber lit up with lines of molten blue. The ship trembled as if gasping for air after centuries of suffocation. Power surged through its veins. Lights flickered to life in corridors long dark. Systems woke from their endless sleep. The Carvos was alive. At that very moment, a group of scavenger raiders had entered the system. They had mocked Marcus from afar, waiting for him to fail. Now, enraged by his success, they decided to humiliate him. Their small ship surrounded the derelict. They hailed him with jeers. "Human fool. Step away from your toy before you burn yourself. Give us the ship. We will strip it for scrap." Marcus didn't answer. He simply stood in the control chamber, staring at the glowing consoles before him. His hands hesitated, then pressed down on the weapons control. The ship responded like a beast awakened. Outside, the Carvos turned its ancient guns, half repaired, barely functional, and unleashed a single blast. It was not even full power, not even a fraction of what the ship had once wielded, but it was enough. One scavenger vessel was vaporized instantly. Another spun into debris. The rest scattered in terror, fleeing into the void. The galaxy, watching through their sensors and reports, fell silent. The ship they had mocked for centuries had roared once again. Marcus stood alone in the command bridge. The consoles hummed around him. The air smelled of ozone, the metal alive with energy. He placed his hand on the chair that had once belonged to an alien commander and whispered, half to himself, half to the ship, "Not bad, old girl. Not bad at all." For the first time in centuries, the galaxy was no longer laughing at the Carvos. They were staring in fear, and Marcus Hale, one human mechanic, had just changed everything. The Carvos no longer drifted as a forgotten corpse. Its corridors glowed with light, its engines hummed with power, and every ancient system seemed to respond to Marcus Hale's touch. The ship, once mocked as worthless, had become a living, breathing machine. But power alone was not enough. The galaxy was watching, and not all of it was friendly. Marcus had expected curiosity. What he did not expect was fear. Reports came in through distant sensors, intercepted by traders and warships alike. "Human repairman awakens Carvos," one signal read. "Ship shows movement. All nearby vessels advised to retreat." Across the galaxy, alien commanders whispered. The Luthari, who had mocked him, convened their war council. The Zorthan engineers, who had failed centuries ago, studied the sensors with disbelief. Even the mercenary clans, usually unconcerned with politics, murmured about the human who had taken what was dead and made it alive. Marcus knew they would come. That was inevitable. He spent days training the ship's systems to respond to his commands. The ancient AI within the Carvos had awakened alongside the ship, but it was cautious, hesitant to act without guidance. Marcus learned its patterns, spoke to it in short, simple commands, treating it not as a machine but as a partner. "You understand me?" he asked one evening as the ship's lights reflected across his worn face. The AI's voice was low, mechanical, yet tinged with a strange recognition. "You are persistent. Your approach is unexpected. I will cooperate," Marcus grinned. "Good. That's all I need." The AI began integrating his changes, connecting circuits and power lines in ways Marcus himself hadn't imagined. Where humans made crude fixes, the AI made them elegant, turning patched-together panels into efficient conduits. By morning, the ship was faster, stronger, smarter. The first test came sooner than expected. A coalition of alien fleets, nervous and fearful of humanity's unpredictable ingenuity, moved into the system. Dozens of warships, sleek and deadly, surrounded the Carvos. Their goal was simple: destroy the human and the ship before either could threaten the galaxy. Marcus watched the fleet appear on the scanner. His heart beat steadily. Unlike the aliens, he did not panic. He saw the challenge as one more puzzle to solve. The aliens sent a message. "Human mechanic. Abandon the derelict. Leave it to us. Any resistance will be met with annihilation." Marcus leaned back in the captain's chair. He rubbed his hands together and spoke to the AI. "They want to test us. Let's see how they like the answer." When the battle began, it was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The aliens assumed their speed and advanced weaponry would overwhelm the derelict. They expected it to be a slow, easy target. They were wrong. Marcus moved with the calm certainty of a man who trusted the ship as much as his own hands. Lasers, missiles, and energy pulses tore through space around the Carvos. The shields shimmered under pressure, absorbing attacks that should have torn the hull apart. Marcus triggered systems in ways no alien would have predicted. Power was rerouted, weapons fired in sequences that seemed random but were perfectly timed. One small squadron of enemy fighters dove straight at the ship, confident in their numbers. Marcus let them come. Then, with a series of precise energy pulses, he turned the attackers into nothing more than floating debris. The remaining fleet hesitated, watching as their plans failed before they could understand why. The galaxy's greatest engineers and commanders were left confused. How could a single human pilot with one derelict ship outmaneuver hundreds of highly trained fleets? The answer was simple. Humans did not think like the aliens. Humans did not rely solely on protocol, tradition, or expectation. Humans improvised. Humans solved problems. And Marcus Hale was the best example of that truth. In the middle of the battle, Marcus spoke quietly to the AI. Remember that trick with the relay? Chain it with the pulse cannon. On my mark. Yes, the AI replied. Initiating sequence, he pressed a button. Energy surged through the ship in a way the Carvos had not experienced in centuries. The pulse cannon fired, followed instantly by a chain reaction through the relays. The effect was devastating. Alien ships were caught in the wave, their hulls cracking and exploding. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. What should have been a calculated strike became chaos, and Marcus smiled. After hours of battle, the coalition fleets retreated. Their pride shattered, their confidence gone. The Carvos, the ship they had mocked for centuries, remained. It had survived, adapted, and defeated them all. Marcus stood on the bridge looking out at the stars. The AI hummed quietly beside him, a strange companion born of necessity and understanding. You did well, Marcus said softly. And you, replied the AI, taught me something I did not know. Humans are unpredictable, dangerous, brilliant, Marcus chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. Word of the victory spread faster than any fleet could. Across the galaxy, whispers became rumors and rumors became awe. Did you hear? One alien commander said to another. A human repaired the Carvos and then destroyed our fleet. Impossible, said another, but the reports were undeniable. The derelict, alive, powerful, and controlled by a single human. Every civilization that had once laughed at the derelict now feared it. Every fleet that had dismissed Marcus now respected the impossible. Humanity, once seen as insignificant, had proven it could turn the forgotten into the unstoppable. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Carvos was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol, a warning, and perhaps a bridge. For the first time, the galaxy had to reconsider humans, not as weak, chaotic, or foolish, but as clever, adaptable, and dangerous. He spent the following days repairing more systems, optimizing the engines and testing the weapons. Each night he walked the ship's corridors, listening to the hum of revived machinery, feeling the pulse of a ship alive again. For centuries, the Carvos had been dead, mocked, and ignored. Now it moved with purpose, and its purpose was tied to him. Humans, Marcus thought, were underestimated. They always had been. But underestimated humans were dangerous. Clever humans, creative humans, humans who refused to quit. Those humans could change the galaxy, and Marcus Hale intended to prove it. The galaxy watching did not yet understand. But soon they would. The derelict starship mocked by all was no longer a relic, no longer a joke. It had become the ultimate weapon, and its master was one human who saw potential where others saw failure. Marcus looked out at the stars, a grin on his face. The universe had laughed at the human who dared to touch the Carvos. Now it would remember him,